Yo, it's the Sporting Tribune today, and as you can see, we're not in my office, we're not in the studio, we are in the headquarters of the back-to-back WNBA champions, and we're joined by a champion herself, Alysha Clark. How are you, and welcome on to the show.
Thank you for having me, and I'm great. I've been enjoying this off season, so I'm great.
You've got plenty of reasons to enjoy it, and I know like this week in particular, right, you've been getting to connect with the fans, like in person, not just on social media, not just at the games, but like getting connect and feel and getting to talk. So how has that been? And also the transition into living in Vegas, like the city that everyone comes to turn up, like you get to live in it.
No, I mean, it's been great. The events that we had this week, for us as athletes, like, we get to play in front of these fans night in and night out. So the opportunity to be able to connect with them outside of just games and quick, hey, hellos and goodbyes is always really special because, they're investing their time and their money and, time with their family to come watch us play and do what we love. So to be able to just, have a couple days where I can sit and talk with them and, just really connect is special. And I was so, I didn't know how it was going to turn out. I'm like, it's a Monday at 5, like people are getting off work.
Yeah.
But man, they showed up. And like, just to see that many people wearing like my jersey or my shirt or having things, that for me that's so special because that hasn't always been the case throughout my journey in this league. And so to see that many people show up, back-to-back nights like that, it meant everything.
No, that's amazing. And you talk about your journey, like it's so cool that we're doing this here. Because my next question, you talk about the journey and how things were before and how things are and how things are going to be.
Yeah.
I think it's super important to document that we're doing this at your home, like your professional home, the headquarters. The logo looks beautiful, the court, everything.
The
and we'll
TV back there with the picture, the championship pictures, like this is...
Yeah, and like that wasn't like that before in some of the teams that you are in the growth of the league. So if you could, like just real quick, touch base on like to give people a point of view of how it used to be and how good it is to like have your locker room, have a place where you can put your stuff and come in whenever you want to. You want to come in at 4 a.m. to shoot some hoops, like you can do all of that.
Yeah. I mean, for me, like we used to practice in a church gym and then having a locker room upstairs that like wasn't ours, but that was the space that we were in, to then being in a Division II, school that, again, we're sharing a locker room that wasn't ours. We had to be in their locker room, in their space, and then going to like a hybrid of an NBA, WNBA like space. And it's like, wow, these are the resources that are available. Like these are the things that like we can, get to and have. So that was really cool. But even still, we had to share space with the G League team. So it wasn't necessarily just always ours. But then like being here, everything is ours. Everything is about us. Everything is about the Aces. Like you said, I can leave my stuff. I don't have to, like usually after season, within like those next 3 days, you have to pack up your locker, your apartment, you got to get out. And so to be able to be in a space where it's like, oh, I'll get to that when I come back in town. It's not, there's no rush to it because it's our space. Like that's huge. And, this was the precedent that was set from Mark, just being able to invest in us, give us a headquarters and a space that's just for us. And so I hope as we continue to move forward, like you're starting to see other owners get on board now. And so hopefully at some point you're going to see, because right now we're at 12, we'll have 14 teams. So you'll have all 14 teams having dedicated spaces just for us as WNBA players. And that's what we're working for. And that's why we're working so hard and planting these seeds that we have been over the years, because we want this league to be great. And, we want to leave it better than we found it when we got in here.
Setting a new standard, which is incredible. And now I got to ask you a tough question, because you're a multiple-time champion. As a matter of fact, I think it's hilarious that you beat Vegas to get a ring, and now you win with Vegas to get a ring. Not to get messy. I'm just saying these are just facts. Now I have to ask you to like pick from your babies. Which one means the most to you? She's like, don't ask me that.
Oh, man.
Or how about this? What does this championship with Las Vegas mean to you?
Yeah, because I was gonna say they're all special. Like to be able to win your first one is something you'll never forget, and that's like the first taste of it. And then obviously being able to share that with my parents and my family, and then the second one, it was bigger than us. Being in the bubble and fighting for injustices and those things, like it was bigger than us, and so like that was special. But then this one, just the group and the dynamic of players that we had, the adversity that we faced all season, the way that people kind of like fell in love with us and then hated us, but then like loved us. And
we're gonna get into that, I promise.
Having like injuries and all the adversity like behind closed doors, and the way that everybody chose to show up and be professional and like, you know, rally around one another to like lift each other up, like that is special. And, you know, it was my first, you know, championship to be able to close out in a Game 4, like the way that it was, the fashion that it happened in such a big basketball city, you know, and I had so much fun. So like this one was by far the most fun I've had winning and playing in my seasons.
And I think it's cool, like, look at your career, and I know you've talked about it. You've had every role in this league, starter to being cut, playing overseas, like all of it. And like for me personally in my career, I've had a couple moments this year where I was like, yo, this is what I wanted to do when I was a kid. But I could be like, I'm not Stephen A. Smith though. I still got plenty more work to do.
Yeah.
For you, you've reached these titles and you've done this, you've won multiple rings. Where does the motivation come?
Never wanting to be complacent. That's something that
that's when you're done. Yeah. When you feel like that, honestly.
Yeah, and for me, like, that's how I live my life. I never want to feel like I've arrived at anything, because there's always so much more room for improvement. There's always so much more room for growth and understanding and learning. And so I just want to make sure that I'm never complacent with where I'm at, but also like being grateful. And that's, some people, that's a hard balance. Yeah. But for me, it's being in the moment and being like, look at what I've been able to do. Look at what I've been able to accomplish. It's a blessing. But like, then having that conversation with yourself, like, okay, well, you're still not there yet. Like, you can improve here, you can do this. And so, and not just on the court, that's in life in general for me. So I think the not ever wanting to be complacent is what motivates me, and conquering challenges is something that like I thrive on. And it's like, you're gonna put something in front of me, I'm gonna figure out how to get it done. It may take me a little bit, but that's okay, but I'm gonna figure it out. And so those two pieces are what drives me every single day.
No, I love to hear it. And you talked about this championship being the most fun you've had. So we need to get into it. We got a lot to pick from, whether it's the flight back into Vegas, then going to Dre's, the championship parade, the Usher show.
Oh man!
Like, can we get a couple stories
like,
that haven't been told
life? That's all I keep saying. I'm like, what is life? I mean, I feel like all the stories. Shout out to Sydney, who's
she was like,
talked about everything. Went on live, did all the things. So I feel like everybody knows all the stories. But no, it's been like so many moments in the last month and some change where I've just been like, what is life? Because the way that like the city and everybody here took care of us, like, and celebrated us, that was so dope and like so special. And I mean, they treated us like the champions that we are. And again, that's not something that happens to this level. Like this, everything about my year here, it's like everything has been elevated. And as Asia Wilson would say, everything has been top tier. But it really has. Like the way that these, you know, restaurants and clubs and owners of playing, like, are showing up like, yo, we want to celebrate, you guys come. That's so dope to me. You know what I mean? Like, just to think back, even at the beginning of my career 12 years ago, it wasn't like that. You know what I mean? So to be in this space and like, I mean, Usher bringing us on stage, like, what else do we need? You know what I mean? Like, what else do you need?
Yo, that is incredible. And one thing I do want to talk about is trust, because I know you weren't here the first year that the Aces won the championship, but the thing that I love the most is Game 4 when they clinched against Connecticut. The lineup was Asia, Chelsea, Kelsey, Jackie, Raquana Williams. That lineup the entire season had only played like 54 minutes total. So I'm like, in the biggest moment, you're just gonna throw a lineup that has like the least, like, it was nuts to me. And fast forward to this year, Game 4, because of circumstances, like there was no more options. The lineup and everyone that needed to be used to pull out that victory, which is also hysterical. You and the Liberty were blowing each other out. There was never a close game until the final one. Because, like, of course, but that trust of like, hey, it's us six. This is all we got. Like, but that trust to go out and make it work.
Yeah. I mean, when we saw the stat that like the starting five for Game 4 only played 8 minutes together the entire season, like we didn't even play a whole quarter together. Like if you look at it, like on the grand scheme of it, we didn't play one whole single quarter together for the entire season, and that's wild. But it goes back to preparation. Every single day that we come into practice, like it's a battle, like you're competing. Like people like to think that because you're not a starter, like you're a scrub, and it's like, nah, like we had 10 legit players that were in here every single day. I don't know if I can say this or not, but like busting each other's asses. But that's where you get better, is you make your teammate better in practice. And that's something I learned early on in my career because I wasn't playing. I was a young rookie and I'm playing, against Tanisha Wright, Tina Thompson, Camille Little, Sue Bird, like Katie Smith. And I remember being in a space where it's like, oh, I'm not playing, like what is this? And Tina Thompson her and Tanisha were like, listen, your job is to make us better in practice. So that's your job. Yeah. So you show up every day and you practice like your life and your career depends on it. Because that's when you make us better, like we go out and we perform better. And so I was fortunate enough to have vets like that could help me see the bigger picture. And because, I wasn't a young, I'd played overseas for 2 years. So I'm like a 25-year-old rookie. I'm not just straight out of college. So like there was that little battle with like myself. And so when that happened, I was like, all right, cool. I'm gonna be the best practice player every single day. And so, but I look back and I'm like, okay, I helped make them better. And so when you have that mindset, that's why I don't trip when people are like, oh, you're coming off the bench, you starting. I'm like, I'm still playing 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Like, okay, what? But that's the thing, is like people don't realize is like in practice is where things happen. So we saw what Sydney and Kayla were capable of doing, KB, what they were capable of doing, because they were doing it every day in practice. So that's where you build the trust, is here when there's no lights, when there's no fans, when it's just you guys. And when their numbers were called, they were ready, they were prepared. And for me, like, it wasn't a change. Like, people wanted to make a big deal that I was in the starting lineup, and I was like, I've started the last 9 years of my career. Like, this is nothing new to me. So I'm like, again, the trust was built here from day one. And when you can have that type of trust in every single player on your team, because it's not common, I can tell you that. But we did, and so that's why nobody was afraid. Like Chelsea and Kia on the sidelines, and like, listen, y'all are ready for this. You don't need, like, go out here and do what you do. And you saw what happened.
And I do want to ask, I don't know, I'm assuming it wasn't a practice, I'm assuming it was a meeting. One, you guys found out, well, we knew Chelsea wasn't going to play, unfortunately. And then the news about Kia kind of took some people by surprise.
Yeah.
And I know Sid at the parade had talked about, they put the montage of the night and all that stuff. Can you talk me through that meeting of you guys?
Of that.
Could you talk me through that meeting of just finding out, okay, well, this is what we got to do and what the message was?
Yeah, I mean, like, we knew about the Kia stuff and, way before everyone else did, obviously. But, like, again, it goes back to the trust that we have with one another and the vault that we've built within our team. Like, what's supposed to be just for us is always going to be just for us. And that's the beautiful part, is when you have a collective group of people that can respect those boundaries. And so, yeah, like, we saw it, you know what I mean? Like, and I get it, right? Like, teams and media are going to do what they need to do to, like, hype up an anticipated matchup and the things. But, like, when you show stuff about someone getting hurt or, the night thing or whatever, and, like, playing it up, cool. Like, again, that's fine. But then, like, after we won and people respond to that, then people want to, like, get butthurt about it. And it's like, listen, we didn't start this. We didn't say anything all year. We didn't say, and it's like, but now that we can address it, we're going to address it, because our goal was, we're going to stay focused, accomplish this, and then we can address the other stuff later. But I mean, it's all fun, right? Like, that's what makes the sports fun, is the trash talk, the back and forth, and that's what makes it exciting. And for us personally, it's like, there's no ill will towards any player on their side. Like,
trying to win a chip.
Trying to win a chip, but like, people misconstrue that, like, oh, because we're coming back and saying stuff. It's like, no, actually, we have zero problems with any of those players. Like, it has nothing to do with them. It's just more about the overall picture. It's like, okay, if you're gonna talk stuff, prepare to have it talked back. And that's what it was, but it was fun. I mean, I loved it. I love that when Sid gets spicy. I love when our teammates get spicy.
Well, it's like, you got to protect little sis or big sis. Like, you're going to say something to them, and I feel comfortable saying this because she documented everything. But the thing that we didn't know, because we weren't there, is what Sabrina had said to her, like, go back to the bench.
Yeah.
Like, you guys took that personal for her, of course, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And was it frustrating, not particularly about Sabrina, but just in general, like the way I saw it is like, why are we policing joy?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They say that the winners get to write history, and you guys are the winners. Like, was that frustrating? It was like, nah, it's cool because we get to speak our truth because we won. So we get the stage to talk.
Yeah, I mean, for us, that's what it was. Like, we won, we took care of business like we set out to do, and now we get to address and speak our truth and all the things, because all season, people were writing things for us. We're making assumptions on our behalf and all these things. So it's like, again, we didn't address any of it. We could have easily like been out. I mean, you saw how we were going after we won, like addressing everything, woke up on 10.
Everything was in the draft.
Woke up activated. But, you know, for us, it's just like, we did what we were supposed to do. Now this is our turn to be able to like discredit or go against the things that have been said about us all year. And that's the other thing, right? Like, if somebody else can speak your truth, it's not your truth. And so for us, we were like, okay, we're gonna speak our truth and let you guys see it for what it is.
One thing I need to ask you is guarding Breonna Stewart, which ain't new to you, former teammates. So you know, you kind of got the cheat code with practice and all the reps. But how was, I guess, the mentality that you guys had, because obviously you held them to 69 points.
Yeah.
With all that talent that they have on the roster.
Right. Yeah, I mean, for me, look, Stewie's one of the best players in the world. Like, hands down, no doubt about it. Like, and she's a really tough guard because she's always active. And so obviously I knew going into game 4, like, she had to be a primary focus of like making her life hell, making everything she does hard, all those things. And so for me, my mindset going into game 4, I mean, in the playoffs in general, because I knew she was going to be like my primary matchup. And I know she's a winner. Like, you know what I mean? She's won at every level. She shows up in big moments. So it's like, you know, she's going to be prepared for this moment. And so I was like, okay, one, like, lock-in factor has to be there. Like, you can't relax for a second. 2, like, the way I study my opponents is obsessive. Like, it's disgusting. But, you know, for me, it's like, how can I gain an advantage, right? Because, like, she's 6'4", I'm 5'11". You know, and obviously, so it's like, where can I gain advantages in this matchup? And for me, it's like with my IQ. And so the way I studied her, I studied, you know, all the things she likes to do, what she likes to do in crunch time, what's her go-to move in this space, on this elbow, this block. And I knew they were going to try to ISO her at the right elbow. That's what they tended to do when they needed a bucket with her, involving her. So I knew, and she operates really well from the high post, because it's a hard area to like help from, because, you know, whatever. So see the nerdy side coming out, like all the things I have to like think of.
Let it out, please do.
Yeah, so for me, it was just like, okay, I need to, like, again, be locked in, and I'm not helping nowhere. Like, you're gonna have to figure it out, because I know if she gets 30, we're not gonna win this game. And so that was my mindset. I was like, she cannot get 30. And whatever that looks like, and if she does, she's gonna get it going to her 3rd and 4th option away from the things she likes to do. And then in that case, you deserve it, because exactly. I made you do something else. But for me, it's like, I need to dictate on the defensive side of the floor what she's gonna do and what the night is gonna look like. And that's how I just went into the game. I was like, all right, cool. And then the flip side of it was like, I know they're gonna try to hide a defender on me, so it's like, now I got to go back to what I used to do and being able to be a scorer, right? Like, I've accepted this role of being a defensive stopper and, you know, shooter when I'm open, et cetera. But it's like, I still know how to get a bucket, so I need to like utilize that. And so that's what I did. I was like, okay, you need to be more aggressive offensively, and then you need to make her life a living hell on the defensive side of the floor. And that was my mindset.
You're talking about the prep and the preparation being disgusting. I just like, how many hours of tape per day would you say, like in the season or back to the finals? Like, what was? I
wish I could, like, honestly, I should call like Ty right now and be like, Ty, I need you to tell the people.
Or you can go
what I asked from you all season. Like, they were just like, oh my gosh, like, you want all, and I was like, yeah, but I mean, it's a lot, to the point where, like, I mean,
he was watching no shows.
Yeah. None. It was just like, and like when I'm in, like locked in on something, like that's my focus. So like to the point where I was like, hey, I need you to send me so-and-so's field goals made, field goals missed, transition, post up on the left block, post up on the right block, ISO situations, what they do on defense against us, what our defense was, our pick and roll defense against them. Like, I mean, just like to the point where Chelsea was like, I just got 18 emails in my inbox from my Huddle account because Ty sent me everything he sent you, and I was like, my bad. So I know everybody was happy that the season ended so they could stop. They're like, listen, I'm tired of my inbox. I'm tired of these requests.
Stop asking for stuff.
Stop asking, but like that's for me.
Tyler got a baby. He got stuff he needs
You know
to
what I'm saying? But that's just like the video part of it. Like that doesn't even like touch into like the statistical part and that type of breakdown. But you know, I like to think that's why I'm great at what I do. It's because of, you know, the commitment and sacrifice I put to making sure I know these things.
And before we get out of here, I want to hit you with some more general questions. And then since I'm here as a member of the media, I do have to ask you, because as this sport grows, as the league grows, you know, the media needs to grow too. Mm-hmm. And I didn't vote Asia Wilson fourth, okay? That wasn't
Finally,
me.
somebody admitted that they did not. See how hard see how easy that is? Just say you did or didn't.
I never would. Whoever did should have the credentials taken. You played yourself. You should never be allowed to anything basketball related.
Or just stand on it and just be like, this is why. Like, we just want to know.
I guess just be bold.
Because what are you watching? But we just want to know.
But, and I know some media members got upset because we weren't allowed in the locker room. Mm-hmm. But I guess my question to you is how are we doing our job? How do you feel, honestly?
I mean, honestly, not terribly, but yeah,
it's like my grade. I got a C in school.
You know,
passing grade though, baby.
No, but I mean, for me, it's about your investment into our league, right? Like, you have some media members that come and just ask questions that just make no sense. You can tell they don't really follow. And it's just why? Like, why do you have a microphone to be able to ask these things? Like, if you're not going to be invested in your job the same way that we are, everybody holds us to these crazy standards as athletes and all these things, whatever. But it's like, okay, well, we're going to hold y'all to that same standard. You know what I mean? And the reason we didn't want media in our locker room anymore is because you had people coming in, just lingering, just trying to chit chat and being
Instagram story posts.
You know, and just shady stuff. And it's just we don't want to have to deal with that. You know what I mean? If you want to talk to somebody, okay, we'll pull them out and have them come speak to you. But it's if you, again, the commitment piece to it, if you're not going to be in there to do your job and do it well, then what are you here for?
Sure.
And so, yeah, don't get me wrong. There's some great media members out there that really are invested and do their job, ask thoughtful questions, ask thought-provoking questions to players, and even the hard questions they ask. And I'm not saying that it has to be be so sweet and only ask about the good things. No, but there's a way you ask things. I was a journalism major. I was EMC major. So I know what goes on. I know how you have to word and do those things behind the scenes. So when I see a media member doing it, I'm like, this is literally journalism 101. You learned this in your freshman year of how to speak to your subject or how to ask a question, how to ask a tough question. And so it's just when you don't have that same respect for what you're doing and covering our sport, why should you have access to us? So that's just my thought on it. But there are some really great ones that I think you saw throughout the finals that really shined. And it's give them more access and more space to those type of things.
How's this interview going, by the way?
Great. I'm enjoying it. I love it. I think you're doing a phenomenal job. So
let's go.
I'm going to put you in that good bucket. You're over there in this good bucket.
I appreciate it. And earlier to start the interview, you brought up that this league's going to 14 teams. San Francisco Bay Area was announced.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be honest with you. Last year specifically, because we're in the holiday season, I was oh, wait a minute. I can't find Aces t-shirts at whatever store. Mm-hmm. I can't buy jerseys. I can only go on the website. And I was the merchandise, the business side is the most important, right? And if we can't sell stuff and we got nothing to sell, what are we doing if we're trying to expand? It's renovating the porch when the house is dirty.
Yeah.
So that's my viewpoint on it. I was we need to solidify the house, the foundation, before we expand. How do you feel?
That's my thoughts on it as well. I get it, right? Expanding creates more opportunities, brings more money, all the things. But it's if we're going to expand and have the same issues that we're currently having, what's the point? But I definitely think, roster spots have been a huge point of contention for so long. And so I can understand it from that side of things. But for me, I'm just I don't know. I felt there could have been a step prior to that. But at the same time, I'm not mad. I'm not mad at there being 2 more teams in 2 more cities and 2 more, opportunities for young boys and girls to be able to come and watch what an amazing product is out here on the floor night in and night out, and be able to invest in these players and support these players, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. And for us, we knew the product and the things were here. And now that there is more coverage and more opportunity on primetime television where people sitting at home can watch and not have to flip through 17 million apps to find us, you're starting to see the business side, grow to what we knew it could. And so hopefully, like these last 2 years, and especially this year, everything was through the roof. Viewership, sales, attendance, all those things were through the roof. So I'm hoping that this season set the precedent for the seasons moving forward in terms of the investment. And like when you invest, look what happens. That's why us in New York were the last 2 teams standing, I think, because you have 2 really great ownerships that are invested in the organization, in their team, and doing these types of things with resources and all the different aspects that come with having a team. And so I don't think it's by coincidence.
And I'm thankful for it because I think it's so important. I try to drum up that it's a rivalry. I'm not going to lie to you because I'm like, stories. I'm a huge wrestling fan.
Okay.
I was like, I like it because the story is so good. The story is what's up. Look at the last Women's National Championship. Although there was some extra stuff that was added on that didn't need to be there, but stories sell. And before we get out of here, you just brought up that roster spots. Mm-hmm. And just like you were talking about having to practice at a literal church gym, mm-hmm. I think some people don't realize that you wrote this in your Players Tribune article about your dad being like, you got drafted, you good. Yeah. You're like, Dad, you don't understand. That I got an invitation into the building. That doesn't mean the roster spot is guaranteed. But I guess speaking on that Players Tribune article, first off, thank you. I know that it was super in-depth. It was enjoyable to read.
Thank you.
And I'm assuming for you, it was something that was therapeutic that you could kind of get that out to the world?
Yeah, it was. And for me, I'm not somebody that likes to overshare, and there's people and players that like to use social media as a digital diary, but I'm a very private, reserved person, especially when it comes to struggles and those types of things. And this was obviously a huge loss for me, and so navigating through the emotions of all of losing my dad, it was so hard for me to deal with, and I immediately just went into just stay busy and just go. So that way I don't have to be out and about thinking about it. But there were so many things along the way that would trigger. And it was just okay, I can't keep holding this in and not being able to speak on it. So when they asked me to, write it in honor of it, for me through this whole grief process was I want to share how dope my dad was, and this gave me the opportunity to talk about it in a way that I could control the narrative of it, and be able to speak again just the things that I'm going through. So to be in a space where I'm vulnerable and not knowing how people are going to react, because there's sick people online. My block list is crazy. I don't mind blocking people.
It ain't nothing.
It's literally nothing. But there's, I would see some comments every now and then, on other people sharing about loss and whatever, and just how nasty people could be. Yeah. And I'll fight over my dad. So I was but just the response I got was so beautiful, just in people sharing in the grief with me and their journey, sharing in that vulnerability piece, helping people see that being vulnerable isn't a sign of weakness, it's actually a sign of strength. And just being able to share in hopeful stories, hopeful outcomes, and people being yeah, I lost my mom 5 years ago, but I just want to tell you it doesn't, the hole never closes, it doesn't get better, but you just learn how to live with it a little bit easier. And so just to be able to connect on such a humanity level is something that I'm really, really passionate about in general. So just to be able to have the response that I did from everyone who read my article, took the time to read it, so thank you. And just to share kind words and encouragement meant so much to me. So I'm happy that I was able to connect people for a little bit, and shed some hope, even just a little bit more.
That's why I'm going to ask this next question. You brought up, mental health. Therapy helped out a lot. Mm-hmm. I go to therapy. I try to talk about it a lot because fellas, you know what I'm saying? We need someone to talk to too, you know what I'm saying? Not just the homies while we're playing Call of Duty. Although I struggle with therapy, talking to people about it is more helpful than going to therapy because I you're not the same age as me. We didn't grow up the same, so you don't know what I'm dealing with, or like you don't get my perspective. But for you, like, how has that experience been?
It took me a while. Like, I didn't connect with therapists along the way, and you
didn't want to talk to them.
No, and I'm very reserved. So sharing something so intimate and deep, and like just letting someone in that you don't know is scary. But when I did find the therapist that I was working with through this time, it was an instant click, like, and she had happened to lose her dad a few years ago. So it was like, there was an aspect of that connection with her, and you can be very specific when it comes to finding a therapist. For me, I wanted a Black woman, because the things that I'm going through, she can relate to and understand. And, I think people don't know that you can be specific.
You have to.
You know what I mean? Like, it could be, you could, if you're, dealing with addictions, like, I want somebody who, is a recovered addict, because they're going to understand. So when I'm having these moments, they can know what to say to me that will resonate. And so I think that connection for me, just being able to find that connection, it was like instant. I just felt like I was talking to one of my homegirls, except she was giving me just a little bit better advice and some more tools to be able to navigate that space. And, for me, I've felt the growth just in how I share when I need help and when I am grieving or when I am in a dark space, and gave me the tools to be able to like latch onto and pull myself out, or like, okay, if I'm in this space, I know this is my person, I reach out for that. So yeah, I always encourage people. I'm like, therapy helps. I know there's a stigma in, communities of color around it, because it's just like, you pack it in and keep it pushing. You don't have time. But it's like, no, there's a healthier way to deal and unpack all of that while still pushing on. So I love that, I can be in that